chance to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in. What a comeback.
All right, welcome to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. We are back after an extended hiatus for the summertime, and we got some Saints football to talk about. We had a preseason game yesterday. Did you get to watch the whole game, or were you kind of jumping in and out?
While it was going on, I was jumping in and out. I went back and watched a bunch of it. Um, I mean, I saw the Rattler series. I saw the first couple Shough series, the two that I think are the only two to really talk about. The huge mistake, um, and then the deep ball to Tipton. It's I don't know. I think from watching it, my general take is there is not a whole lot to be excited about or that changed my mind about where we're headed this year. Um, if we go back to what we talked about when we first drafted Shough, my biggest issue with us drafting him where we drafted him was I thought it was a reach. I thought it was more of a flyer type pick, and it was pretty high up to take that flyer pick, and time will tell. When I watched what I could get my hands on, obviously, none of us have access to all the film or anything like that. But when I went and looked through most of his highlight tape, it seemed like most of his highlights were in situation he wasn't under pressure, great protection, not much in the way of, getting the ball out with, rushers in the space or off schedule, other than a couple, there's a couple big highlights where he's rolling left, throws the ball against his body, and had a couple completions that way. But I just didn't see a guy that was going to step in right now and be the guy for an NFL franchise. So I didn't like the pick just because it was a second round pick. If it would have been a third or fourth round pick, probably wouldn't have bothered me the least bit. And I think you saw all of those things. A guy who, if you protect him perfectly, can deliver to the receiver that's open. Couldn't throw it better on the Tipton touchdown, that's for sure. And there were, a handful of other really good throws too when he was clean. And then you saw when he was under pressure, he took that bad sack where he just kept backpedaling. And then, of course, the pick six was just a terrible decision. So I think you see all the things I was worried about, the inconsistency from him. But of course, it was his first game, so we're not going to read too much into that. As far as Rattler, Rattler was exactly what Rattler's been since he's been here. All the people saying how great he's looked in camp and things like that, that was the same player as last year. There was nothing different. There was a lot of dumping the ball off, taking short gains, 3rd and 7, throwing a 4-yard curl route, taking sacks, took 3 again, turned it over once. I just don't see anything there that tells me he's a starter in the league. Maybe he can develop and down the road, but those situations are so few and far between. I just think he's probably a pretty nice backup that you drafted in the 5th round, and that's not the worst thing in the world. Maybe he can come in and flash something in a game or finish out a game for you and be a good backup in the league. I just, to date, haven't seen a starter out of him yet. So that's really the only two things I was looking at other than the offensive line, and I don't think they looked great either. The run game was terrible from the running backs. I think Rattler was the leading rusher with 20-something yards, and the running backs averaged like less than 2 yards a carry, something like that. That's concerning because if we can't run the ball, we're not going to give Shough any chance at all this year. Defensively, we faced Trey Lance and they ran the ball right down our throat pretty much the whole game. They didn't even really much try to throw the ball. I think they only had like maybe 19 attempts, something like that, and they ran it for 150 plus. And I think, you kind of felt we were the lesser team, even with the backups on the field most of the game. At least I did.
Yeah, there's definitely, we don't have any depth, and we touched on that over and over again. since the end of the season. And I mean, this team, the starters, I think will be okay. They'll stack up. It's obviously not top of the league talent, but I don't think it's the worst team in the league when you're talking about the starters. It's when you start talking about that next wave of people all the way down to the 53rd guy. That's when this team starts going towards the bottom of the league because there is zero depth. And yesterday, you mentioned the offensive line. Eric McCoy didn't play, which that's a big deal, especially when Will Clapp got hurt pretty quickly into the game. So all of a sudden, there's a rookie, Orselli Simpkins, I think his name is. He's a guard, and all of a sudden he's playing center in his first game, undrafted rookie. He held up all right considering the circumstances, but it just highlights that if something happens to McCoy, we're probably fucked at center, especially with Clap hurt. Something happens to Banks or Fuaga, we're equally fucked. Those are the three key guys on the line. Banks, I think he had 12 wins in pass protection. I saw that earlier. He looked good in his limited time. And that's how he needs to look. Like he had to be that plug and play guy that, we can depend on this season and the next 10 years, if we're being honest. Like for a top 10 offensive lineman, you've got to be a 10 years plus starter and a top guy. Um, what? Quarterbacks, Rattler, like you said, looked the exact same as last year. Anyone who watched last year and was still convinced that Rattler had a chance to be a long-term starter in this league is just as crazy as they were, last year. If they still think the same thing after watching yesterday's game, he was another fumble on a sack. I mean, the guy's a fumble machine at this point. I think he had what, five last year, I want to say it was, in limited action, which is pretty bad. The guy never met a sack that he didn't love. He just takes sacks at a ridiculous rate. And he was almost playing scared, man. It was like he wasn't playing to win the starting job. It was almost like he's like, you know what? Let me not fuck up because I've got a lead over Shough going into this game.
But that's
Um,
how he played last year too. I think. I think
no,
most of it
exactly, and that's
was,
him.
yeah. So
Yeah,
more of the same from him.
exactly. It was business as usual for Rattler. Duck, it looked a little more crisp with him. Like, he seemed a little more decisive throwing the ball. He didn't look good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say he looked good. Neither one of them looked good yesterday. Offensive line obviously didn't do their best job run blocking, pass blocking. And Dylan Radins, who normally plays guard, they had him playing right tackle once Fuaga came out. He was fucking terrible. Like, this dude, if he's going to be the third tackle, we've got problems. And that just
Yeah.
highlights the lack of depth that we've talked about over and over again since the end of the season. There's got to be, I don't know what would happen if Fuaga or Banks got hurt. Does
Well, they
Penning
probably,
slide?
yeah, that's what they would do. I think, but he got hurt too, right? So,
Yeah,
by
but
all
they
accounts,
haven't. I haven't heard it.
not
I haven't heard anything about his injury though, so I don't think it was anything serious. I think he
yeah,
was.
they said
I think it was
he
okay.
walked to the cart and everything. So hopefully nothing serious. I have to after seeing that, I agree with you. I don't see there's any way they wouldn't slide Penning out there and move him inside into Penning's guard spot. Um, but it again shows the lack of depth there still. And that's Shough. We can talk about the good things, but that was mostly against what is equivalence of a third unit for the Chargers by the third quarter. They didn't play anybody, which makes Rattler's performance even worse. They didn't really throw
Yeah.
any of their frontline starters up there, and we still gave up 5 sacks in those first, in with those two guys behind center. So I will say the one thing that was promising, I guess, or the one position group that looked promising to me and may have depth, which we were hoping was the case, but isn't, was linebacker. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Ward played pretty well. Stallbird played well. Um, you
Dutchman.
know, yep. Stutzman played pretty well, and that's all behind the starters. And then there's still, Neffy's still there. That unit might actually have found some depth with these young players, which is promising. But again, it's preseason, so I don't want to blow it out of proportion. But I don't think they could have performed much better than they did. They, D line, no one was really playing to your point. It's hard to evaluate when you're looking at a second unit out there for the most part.
Well, you
I
say
don't know.
that, and I want to highlight Fadil Diggs, who I think was the sixth or the seventh round pick. I don't remember which one. He looked good yesterday. That dude looked better than Foskey has looked in two full seasons and one preseason game. Foskey played the
Yeah,
whole damn game and didn't get a single stat. Think about that.
yeah.
Like he didn't
I
register a
mean,
tackle, an assist, anything.
that's what he does, man. It
Yeah,
was
he's
nice to see us
terrible.
get a couple sacks. We had two, I think, right? Did
Yeah,
Rumpf have
one of
one
them.
also?
It was I want to say it was Stallbird and I know Jesus Christ, the big
Christian
defensive
Boyd had
tackle.
one.
Christian
Yeah,
Boyd, that's it.
yeah, yeah.
His was a straight up
Um,
bull rush, man. Should have been a safety. It was fantastic.
yeah, and it'd be nice to, if he contributes, we kind of need him to in the rotation this year. So hopefully that's a good sign. Um, so I don't know. I'm not disappointed. I don't think anything happened that was overly shocking. I think our the things we're worried about showed, and uh, luckily it wasn't our starters. I would hope with AK in there and Kendre as the change of pace, maybe the run game looks a lot better than it did. That was probably the biggest thing that was disappointing to me. The
Yeah.
QBs kind of performed how I felt they would perform. Now, hopefully we get to see Shough starting and he gets a couple series against some starters next week and we get to see, you know, how that looks. And hopefully it looks at least the same or better, as we try and progress through this thing. But, you know, not a lot of optimism from me coming out of this that they're better than I thought they were or anything like that. I think this is kind of what I expected.
Yeah, and just to follow up, so there were three sacks yesterday. Diggs had one, Chris Rump had one, and
That's it.
then
Yep.
Christian Boyd had the other one. So yeah, to your point, man. I mean, I still think this is around a 5-win team. I just think they'll figure out a way to somehow get 5 wins. I don't know because you know how it is. Every year there's these random teams that win a game in week one. Like I told you the other day, I have a feeling we're going to beat the Cardinals. I have nothing concrete to base this on. It's just one of those weird feelings where it feels like the Cardinals are going to be favored by like 6.5, 7 coming to the Superdome, and then we're going to somehow pull a shocker and beat them. It just feels like something weird's going to happen like that. I do think though we have to see Shuck this week as a starter. You know, Rattler is who he is. It just we know what he is at this point. There's no sense in delaying the inevitable. Let's get Shuck as many reps in practice as possible. And to that point, Hayner's got to be. They got to go ahead and say this is if worse a two-man competition. Like we can't have this three-man competition anymore because Hayner. We all know this. Like Hayner is not. He is not a factor in this QB race. He's simply not. The dude came in and promptly threw an interception. When he got in, and it's just we know what he is too. He's a future coach. He's a future Kellen Moore.
Yeah. And I think less of him than even you do. And I think you're to the point where we probably cut him. And if he's on the practice squad, great. If he's even eligible, I assume he is. Everybody's eligible,
Yeah,
right?
he is. Yeah.
So for me, that's what he is. He's a practice squad player. He doesn't belong on an NFL roster, in my opinion. He's that he can get a practice squad check and sit there if all hell breaks loose and you just need someone who knows the system to come in. But he doesn't belong playing in the NFL, in my opinion. I'd much rather keep a Rattler than a Hayner just from the physical skills that you could probably scheme around to get some shot plays and things like that. I just haven't seen anything that Hayner does very well at all, other than look the part and look calm, but it never translates because then he gets, as soon as the ball snapped, all hell breaks loose, it seems like every time.
Yeah, I
So,
think Hader's value to me is as that third quarterback who coaches like to have because he knows this offense. He can help along whoever the starter is. If the starter's a young guy, you know that sort of thing. Because he just his trajectory looks like Kellen Moore's. Like Kellen Moore went to the Lions. He was with the Cowboys for a little bit too, and never played. And he was just the guy who did well in college, but didn't have the physical ability to make it in the NFL. And Hainer just has that exact same just thing about him. He was a really good college quarterback, not to the level of Kellen Moore. Because Kellen Moore,
no, Kellen
one of
Moore
the
was a
one of the
great
all
college quarterback. Yeah.
Kellen Moore was an all-time college quarterback. Hainer, by all accounts, is an extremely smart guy, knows his system inside and out, and just seems like one of those guys that coaches like to have in the quarterback room. They know he's not a threat, but he's there to help coach along whoever the young guy is. And that's just what feels like his future is. And I think he does that for 7 or 8 years, and then he'll transition into coaching, and then all of a sudden he'll be the hot offensive coordinator name in like 2035 or something, you know. But he can't be in this competition anymore. We got to get it down to just the
No,
two of them. And
I don't
look, you
think he
know,
makes an NFL roster again, is what I mean. I think he might hang on a practice squad for a year or two, maybe even three. I don't think he's barring like crazy injuries for a team, I don't think he's a rostered regular NFL player once we let go of him, if it's this year or if it's next year. But I agree with you 100%. Like, stop playing around. Go ahead and announce it. It's a competition between Rattler and Shough. Shough's starting. And then after next week, almost regardless of what happens, announce Shough as the starter and move on, because we've seen what Rattler can do. You know, he got 7 starts. There was nothing in those starts other than a nice half where we got 3 turnovers out of Baker, and he got a short field over and over again, and we scored some points. And then the one comeback in the Hainer game where he scored like 10 points, and we freaked out and thought it was like some epic performance, because he drove us down in a clutch shot. But we don't score points when he's in there. I mean,
yeah,
his
we really
starts,
don't.
we averaged like 11 points a game in his 6 starts last year. So it's, I don't think there's any point in trying to continue to do that. If all of a sudden he makes some drastic change, or Shough is just so bad, you're like, hey, we see Shough's not the guy either in week 6, and we just go, let's run Rattler out there and see if some time not starting did anything for him. You use the second round pick on Shough. We're starting to rebuild. He's 26 years old by the 4th game, like you said. This is his 26-year-old year, which is the same as Hainer and one more than Rattler. I think this is Rattler's 25-year-old year. Hainer's 26 as well. You need to know now. I don't see why we're kind of skirting around it a little bit. There isn't that time to like, oh, we're going to develop him. He'll be 30 by the time you develop him. So put him in. Let's see. And you drafted him for his maturity and his readiness. So either he's ready or he's not. Let's go and let's see what he can do. And we all hope it's much better than I think, right? I mean, I despise the pick just because of the state of the team. So hopefully I'm wrong and he proves himself to be, a top half of the league starter. But if he's not, then I think we need to know right now. So when we go into 26, presumably with a very high draft pick, in the top 8 again, right? That you have the ability to strategize whether you want to trade up for one of these quarterbacks, or if you like the second or third one and kind of see how a Nussmeier or whoever steps up this year. We don't even know that yet, but that you have the flexibility to go get one of those guys. I think you need to know for sure what Shough is, and the only way to do that is playing time.
Yeah, definitely. And the funniest thing to me is looking at the Twitter reaction to the game yesterday, and man, those Rattler fans have kind of they've cooled off. You know what I mean? Like a good, I know Jono ran a poll right after the game saying who do you want to be the starter, and he got like 2,000 responses to it, and I want to say it was like 70 something percent was Shough. You know, whereas if you were to run that poll before the game, you're probably looking at Rattler with like 80%, just given the circumstances of Twitter and the people who
But
are on there.
yeah, and what Ross is saying, everybody else, people we like, but they were all backing Rattler hard too. And it's just like, okay, I get it. He's playing better in camp, but we've seen him in real life. And those are two different things. So, I think we were always skeptical, even though of the positive reports coming out of the camp. And, in the last couple weeks, especially, it seemed to be a lot of negative coming out about Shough and, turning it over, and he hadn't been playing very well. Well, still, you got to know. So I think to your point, it's Shough's turn to start. Rattler got his start, Shough's turn. And barring a complete meltdown, I think after that game, you announce going into the 3rd preseason game that Shough's the starter. We're going to start prepping him to start the season in these next couple of weeks. So you can start game planning with his skill set. And we go from there.
Yeah, and well, I have a question for you or a scenario I want to pose you in a second. One more thing to touch on about Shough and Rattler. Like Rattler is not fast. And I know that you keep getting these people. mistakenly say, oh, he's not a mobile quarterback. Like Rattler's like a 5 second 40 guy. And you see it. You know what I mean? Like when he's scrambling, it looks like a
Yeah,
fullback going after a fumble, man. Like he's slow.
I would. He is slow. I would say he's fairly athletic, but he's very slow.
Yeah, but
He's
when you
not a runner. He's not a
no,
runner.
at all. And my point is, like when you see Shough, there's athleticism there. It's kind of that I'm not going to say it's to the level of Daniel Jones's sneaky speed. We've seen Daniel Jones rip off like 70-yard runs before. Shuck's got speed. I don't know if he's as fast as that. He's not obviously not Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick kind of speed, but he's not slow. Like I think if Shuck got in the open field, he could house one. And you know that Kellen Moore wants to have the QB run as part of the playbook. Like you saw him, they called the play a couple times, roll him out, RPO, and Shuck made a few passes off of it. Rattler had a couple of runs, but Rattler's not equipped to do that during the regular season. But the scenario I wanted to pose to you is, so let's say that comes to fruition, like you just mentioned. We have the game next week. Shuck starts. Let's just say he looks pretty solid. Let's say Rattler looks about the same as he did this past week. Instead, they come out and announce, all right, we're going to focus on Shuck as QB1. Would you try to see if you can get anything for Rattler? And then maybe bring in like an older veteran who could be a mentor type, who's not going to be someone that the fans are calling for to start. And it's just maybe another voice in the room that can coach Shuck up. And, I'm trying to think of somebody that would fit this bill. I guess I would say like a Flacco type. Of Flacco started games the last couple of years. But you know what I mean? Like somebody who's like a mid to late 30s guy, not looking at himself as a starter anymore, doesn't have an issue with mentoring a younger guy. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna take it personally that he's not starting. Would you try to see if you can get anything for Rattler? Because the second Chuck does anything wrong, the people are going to be screaming for Rattler. That
I mean,
whole
I guess that depends what you mean by get something. Like, what are we talking? What do you think his value is?
well, let's see. So what? He was a fifth round pick. I mean, if you could get a 6 or a 7 for him, we need draft capital. You know what I mean? Like we're at the point where we need as many lottery tickets as possible. We need as many draft picks as possible. So if
I would
somebody said,
say,
"Oh, I'll give you a 6," or hell, I'll give you a fifth back for him,
I would say no.
so you would
I
hold on to
probably
him.
just, I probably would. And one of the reasons, you know, I think a veteran QB like a Flacco, like you're referring to, is great if you think you have the guy. I think that that's a huge benefit. If you put in a Flacco, he might go out and win 4 games for us.
That's what
You
I
know what I
mean.
mean?
That's why Flacco is not a good. He's not a good example. I'm trying to think of somebody.
I mean, like
Jesus,
if Jameis got cut or Russell Wilson got cut there, if
like a Jameis.
what's it?
Well, no, everybody would be calling for Jameis. You know how that is.
Of course.
Um,
Um,
there's somebody, and I can't think of who the hell it is. I don't know, man. Just a veteran who's not a threat to start that no one is going to
yeah, I'm
call
trying to
for.
think who's available. Like, is like Carson Wentz still out there, or Jimmy
He
G,
is, I
or
believe. Yeah, I think
I,
so. I'm gonna look and see.
I mean, those two come to mind. They're now firmly backups in their career.
Like a Case Keenum now, or maybe like a Tyrod Taylor. A Brian Hoyer type. Somebody like that. Somebody who's been in the league for 10 to 12 years. Obviously he's a smart player, obviously good in the locker room, obviously coaches like him. Someone like that who no one is going to call for Brian Hoyer at any point to start a game. You know what I mean? But it could be somebody like we talked about it. You've got to find out this year whether Shuck is the answer. And to me, if you decide that we're going to roll with Shuck over Rattler, to me, at that point, throw all the support you can at Shuck and give him the absolute best chance to succeed. And if that means putting somebody in there who can be a mentor to him in the locker room, because right now he's competing with Jake Haener, who's the same age as him. He's competing with Rattler, who's exactly 1 year younger than him. There's no real veteran presence in the locker room. So just someone that could kind of be like, okay, this is how you be a pro. These are the things maybe you should focus on. Like a Blaine Gabbert, someone like that. Like someone who's just been in the league for 10 to 12 years and no one is going to look at and say, "Oh, this guy should be a starter." Or like Nick Foles if he's still running around, like no one thinks he should still be a starter.
He retired, I think. I wouldn't get rid of Rattler for less than what you spent on him. I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair.
I do think he could be a bona fide backup in the league just because of his arm. And like I said, he does have a certain skill set that you could maybe scheme a game with potentially, right? And that's really all you want out of the backup. He isn't there yet, I'll say that. But,
Yeah.
that's a tough call. I think I would have to get back what I invested in him to even consider it. If someone went to offer me more than that, yeah, I would definitely consider it. If you could get a 4 for him or something like that, some team just sees something in him and wanted to come up and throw. But what did they get for Joe Milton, for example?
Let me look that up. But look, that's a good question because how about Clint Kubiak? We know he's the offensive coordinator in Seattle. I don't know. Maybe somebody gets hurt over there, and or he just says, you know what, I really like Rattler last year. I think he's got potential. You know,
Yeah,
a situation like that. He says, give him a fourth. I'm
then
looking to
yeah.
see
I mean,
what.
if you're talking about we swapped a fifth for a fourth for a guy who's, I'm always for that. I mean, that's to me that's just upgrading. But um, I
Joe
would
Milton
definitely
went
do it.
for Joe Milton went for a fifth and a seventh.
Okay, so a fifth and a seventh, maybe you could convince me, but a fourth for sure. I would say I would have to entertain that if they do eventually decide he lost the job, which to me he should have already lost it. But I don't see a harm in him being here. It would be nice to have a guy who's done it,
Yeah,
but that's
that's
also
where I'm at with
kind
it.
of it's also kind of Kellen Moore.
Yeah, but
You know
he
what I
never
mean?
he never did it though. Like that dude didn't. I mean, how many games did he even play in? I don't think he started a game. I'll look it up, but
I don't think he started a game.
yeah, I don't think he did either, man. And I don't know. I'll say one thing. After watching the game yesterday, it was glaringly obvious to me why the Saints picked Shuck at 40. I think Kellen Moore looked over the roster. He did his due diligence. He looked at everything we have, all the pieces we are missing, and said, you know what? I've watched tape of Rattler. We're not winning a damn game if I start this guy for 17 games. And this locker room is probably not gonna handle it very well. So I think he said, you know what? Let's find somebody else. Let's have some competition. I think that this guy can be something. Talking about Shuck. Let's take our swing. If you miss, you miss. And you're gonna look at how many teams miss. I mean, the Browns have been missing for 30 years at this point.
And we'll see if he's right or not. My problem with it was not the taking the shot, is that as a player, I don't get it in the second round. I get the idea of exactly what you're saying, 100%. I just don't see that in the player at 40. I don't see it. And if he's right, yeah, it's a home run. I'll give him all the credit in the world. I feel like there was second round picks pretty valuable, especially at 40. If you could build up, what if we had a receiver there that you or I wanted, or the second corner that we still don't really have, right?
Yeah.
Will Johnson was there, and that was a first round talent. And we'll see. Maybe he's a bust. Who knows? I'm just saying there were so many players there that might have been, you know, legit to reach for that quarterback at that spot. For me, was a tough one to swallow. Not the idea of taking a quarterback in the second round at all. That
Right.
doesn't bother me in the least bit.
No, we're on the same page with that. I mean, you and I were very vocal about we both love Luther Burton. And I want to say he went at pick 39 to the Bears.
Yeah.
And I've been vocal about Mason Taylor because we our tight end room is abysmal as it currently stands. And
Will
I
Johnson was 47, I think.
yeah.
Who we
And
were
look,
we were kind of watching.
we're on the same page with that. You and I both would have preferred either, just bite the bullet, see if Rattler's it, and then, get more talent on this team. And then if we get the top pick in the draft in 2026, so be it. Now, we still might get the top pick in 2026, but I don't know. I still think this is a 5-win team. I think the defense is going to be a little bit better than I originally thought. The linebackers were really encouraging yesterday. You know what? Let me highlight a few other players that jumped out to me. Kendrick Miller looked solid yesterday. There wasn't much blocking for him, and he like he does whenever he plays, showed flashes. Unfortunately, due to whether it's not knowing the playbook or not being able to stay healthy, we haven't been able to see extended flashes in his career so far. But he looked pretty solid. Running hard, breaking tackles. Velas Jones Jr. For running backs, I've been begging for a running back with juice for years. And that dude is fast as hell, man. There was a comment from him a week or two ago when he said something about he was faster than Rashid Shaheed. He might be,
Yeah.
man. That dude's fast. And I remember when he was coming out of Tennessee, he was a wide receiver, and he's kind of a wide receiver running back hybrid. So the way he looked yesterday, he had a long kickoff return too. That's one of those guys that there's definitely a place for him on the team as of right now. Wide receivers, I guess Kevin Austin had a decent game. I guess you got to highlight Mason Tipton having the long touchdown, although it looked like he was trying to drop the ball. Mason Tipton, like one of the all-time training camp guys that looks great in training camp, and we didn't even see him in the preseason last year, and he somehow made the team, which is still crazy to
Yeah,
me.
well, because he was killing everybody in camp, supposedly, from everything we heard, right?
Yeah, man, I'm
But
to the point where I'm really taking these training camp reports, no matter who it is. I don't want to, call anybody out, but man, these things you got to take
you're
them with a
coming over to my
tremendous.
side, huh?
You just got to take it with a huge ass shaker of salt, man, because it's all we hear about is how
Bullshit.
Olave's the best player on the field every training camp, and then we get to the regular season and he has 3 touchdowns and barely scrapes out 1,000 yards. You hear about Spencer Rattler just tearing up training camp, and then you see a game and you're just like. This is a backup quarterback. So I don't know, man. These guys, they got to get clicks. They got to get people to read the articles and all that stuff. But I'm only trusting what I see with my eyes at this point. And I'll probably be wrong a lot more than I'm right. But man, I don't know, man. Some of these reports we read are just crazy. But just a few more, and then I'll throw it over to you. Diggs, I thought looked awesome. He looks the part, man. He's got arms that look like they freaking reach the floor. He just he looked kind of like Javon Curse with his build. Just that. I don't know if the pads were smaller. He just had that. He looked like a pterodactyl out there.
Mm.
Husky played the whole game, did nothing. I think I hate to give Corey credit, but Corey calling for Foskey to be cut last training camp, he might have been a year ahead on that one. Christian Board, would be amazing if he could step up and be one of the true nose tackles behind Godshaw, because obviously we're going to need a few of them. Stutzman, Stallbird, I thought they both looked fantastic. Stallbird was flying all over the damn place. Looked like a heat-seeking missile out there. Um, Cornerbacks, I really didn't notice anybody, so I guess that might be a good thing. It's kind of like offensive line. If we
Yeah, they
don't hear
didn't try
anything
and
about
throw
them,
on us too much, so I don't know.
yeah, same thing with safety. I just, didn't really notice anybody. Both of the punters, they got big legs. I think they're both better than Hayball. So I
Not a
guess
huge
that
statement.
comments not a huge statement, but I think whoever wins out of that, I think there'll be an upgrade. But I don't know, man. I
So
mean, I'm not very enthusiastic about this year, just given the depth situation because the depth is terrible.
yeah, I think what I'm looking for out of this year is we clearly have no chance at anything big, right? You just simply don't have the roster with Carr retiring and Honey Badger retiring and trading Lattimore, letting a Debo go. You're talking about even for the people who hate Carr, 4 of your top 10 players left, and you essentially brought back Justin Reed only, in my opinion, that fits into one of those molds of a top 10 player in the roster. And then maybe you added Banks in the draft as hopefully a top 10 player right out the gate. But then you also factor in Demario a year older, Cam a year older, former, Cam maybe our best defensive player. Um, I'm just looking for the young guys for us to get some of that right from these last 2 drafts, just to have 2 or 3 of those guys become, you know, really good players. That's what I'm looking for this year, so we can move forward and know what we need to fill. And we've got a lot of decisions next year too. When you really look at it, with Olave's contract, Shaheed, Alante Taylor, there's a lot of stuff to make decisions on next year in this rebuild, and we need to know what we're doing when we do it. We signed a couple of the wrong ones to big deals, and we're going to be sitting behind this thing even more. One of the reasons we have all that cap space, one of the things we always talk about, is because none of these guys are signed yet. These young players in their mid-20s that are going to be probably looking for pretty big contracts, and we have to figure that out this year. It's a big year to vet out the roster. So that's all my hope, is that some of these draft picks turn out to hit, regardless of who it is, and if it's Ford or if it's Stutzman or if it's just some big time contributors coming out of this thing. Not even necessarily stars, just like you've got a player that's going to start for the next 5 years for us.
Yeah. Well, we talked about how this draft needed to be almost like the 2016 draft. That was the one where they got a couple starters. You got Mike Thomas, Von Bell. It was a good, solid foundational draft. It wasn't the flashy franchise-altering 2017 draft. We need one of those coming up next year or the year after, but this one has to be like that workman-like one where you pull out a few long-term starters out of it.
Yeah, now when you got the offensive player of the year, so if we hit that, I think we'd hit a home run for that type of draft, and maybe Banks is that guy. So you know, I'd like to see from the past two drafts to have five guys that we know are going to start for the next 5 years here. That'd be great. Um, One thing I'd also, with all the chaos going on in Cleveland with this bizarre quarterback situation, I'd be watching that as a quarterback to add and get rid of Hayner, whoever it
Who
is.
would who would you want? Who would your preference be? There's
I
like
don't
five or
know.
six contenders, man, because they added Tyler Huntley.
But okay, let's put it this way: if they cut even Deshaun, let's say if they were to cut Deshaun, Shador, Gabriel, or Pickett, are you not signing any of those guys to our team?
I don't think they would sign Watson
If he
because I
had
think it.
no market, you don't think they'd sign him? I get the problems and all that. I like we all don't like the guy. I totally get that. I'm just saying, for the Saints roster, do you think he gets no interest from the league and he's going to go on an NFL minimum? You don't think the Saints would take a flyer on him at no risk?
I don't
I
know,
could.
man.
It's tough.
I just
So they've got to cut. What? I mean, you've got to cut between. You can't carry four QBs on your roster. So one of these can
man,
make the
they got
practice squad and get signed.
they got more than
So
four. I think Watson's
yeah,
on injured reserve though, so
yeah,
they
but
can
he's going
keep him on
to,
IR.
but not for much longer, right?
Oh
Well,
no, I
I
mean
guess.
he's probably gone after this offseason. But Gabriel, that's tough, man.
I mean, yeah, you would definitely sign Shador if he got cut. I think
Yeah, for sure. I think Gabriel
because
or Shador, just because they're rookies, and you
yeah,
kind of
they're
got to see what's
23 and
there.
24 years old. Kenny Pickett's only 27, and he kind of fits a little bit of that veteran thing you're talking about. I mean, I'm also assuming this is all no money, right? We're not going to go pay any of these
Right,
guys.
right.
But I think whatever happens there, Huntley's going to get cut. We know that. But it still leaves Flacco, Gabriel, Pickett, and Sanders. One of those is getting cut. And then when Deshaun's back, another one's getting cut. So
I don't think Deshaun's coming back this year. I think he's out for the whole year. Did he
is he
tear his
really?
Achilles or something? I think so. I feel like they put him on IR and they just shut him down.
Okay. I thought he was on like the whatever the old pup or whatever it's called. He's
I'll
out
look.
for the year.
I think if you got your computer, hold on. I'll look it up. I'm pretty sure. I want to say they shut him down for the year. Yeah, he popped his Achilles, right?
Yeah, but there was a bunch of games left when he popped his Achilles. Remember, James? Like it wasn't late in the season.
No, so it looked like it originally occurred in October, and then he had a re-rupture in January.
Okay, maybe I didn't see that.
Yeah, so
Still, that's October, 9 months. I mean, did he have it reoperated on in January? Is that what it said, or
yeah, he
did
had
he
he had
wait?
a, he had a second surgery. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and look at the Browns roster and see what we got. It'll say if he's on IR or not. God, they've got so many goddamn quarterbacks. It's ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, does any of them interest you if they get cut? Because that's probably what you were just talking about. If we're going to bring someone in, it's probably coming from that quarterback room. Because why wouldn't a quarterback want to come to this quarterback room?
Man, I'll be honest with you. The only one that would interest me would probably be Shadur.
You wouldn't just bring in Dylan Gabriel and just see.
I would. But he strikes me as a Jake Haener type. That a little bit too small, not strong enough of an arm. Yeah, you're right. Deshaun Watson is on the pup list. Okay, so they haven't shut him down yet.
Guys,
Yeah, I don't know, man. I Pickett. I don't. I feel like we know what Pickett is. Flacco, I don't think they'll cut just because they know they actually have aspirations of winning, so they know that they can plug him in and have a chance at winning a few games. Pickett. I mean, I feel like we know where he is, right? Like we know that he's not going to be one of
oh
those
yeah,
guys.
I'm not putting any stock in. any of them really. I don't think any of them
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we got to go get them. But I think if we were going to be like, okay, this is bad, we're gonna move on from Hayner and we're gonna bring someone else in. I think this is probably where they come from.
Well, you saw they released their depth chart for this week, and Shador is still riding number four.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I'm sure Twitter is upset about that.
he's gonna beat out Gabriel, right? But if they bring Watson back, are they gonna cut Watson? He's not just gonna sit, dude. They're like that'll cause chaos there. He'll
I
either
mean,
say if
Watson
you're gonna
hasn't been good, dude. He hasn't been good the last couple of years.
I agree, but he's going to say, I have a track record, and he's still only, what, 29, 30 years old, probably. Um, and look, I don't want him as our starter. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying to bring in competition and or, probably not the veteran you want to bring in either. I the fact that he continues to get paid is pretty remarkable considering, you know, all the
Fully
drama
guaranteed
around him.
deal,
And
man.
I know
100%
it's just
guaranteed contract.
you'd think even those could be broken in some form or fashion, and he's a prime candidate for that. But uh, I hope we don't bring him in because I don't think he does anything for us. And just uh, the drama and all the stuff he was up against. Obviously we're not fans of any of that. But if he came back and they cut Flacco, uh, no, I would sign Gabriel or Shador for sure, just because they're rookies and why not? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
um, Pickett, I agree with you. Unless you just wanted, uh, I mean, as bad as Pickett is, he's decidedly performed better than Rattler and Hayner. So, is he a better long-term backup option for you with a little more experience? I don't know. I have no clue where their heads at. I'm just saying, either that room or the Giants room, I think, is where a potential signing would come for us after the cut, and it would be
Yeah,
Hayner left out.
I think you're right about that. And there's one thing to remember. So, Kellen Moore coached Pickett last year. So, if anyone has any insight as to whether, like, you would think he would have a strong opinion about Pickett one way or the other. Like whether it's this guy can be a starter or no, this guy is useless. We don't need to bring him in. Like one way or the other, he would have an opinion. And that brings me to his former team, the Eagles. They've got solid QB depth as well. I'm looking at theirs. So you got Hurts, obviously. After that, they traded for Dorian Thompson Robinson from the Browns, which honestly was a smart trade because it fits more of the you can kind of
They they can
plug them
run
in and
it
do the
still.
Hurts thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can
Mm-hmm.
still do that. So Tanner McKee, who looked damn good last year in limited action, he's only 25 years old. This is his third year. You also got Kyle McCord, who they drafted this year. So, dude, that's four. Who's the odd man out there? I would take if they're cutting McCord or Tanner McKee. I
Yeah,
would
you
take
bring
one of
either of
them
those guys.
over. I would take either one of them over the Browns guys. So that's the other
Do you
team I'm
think
looking
there's
at is
any
the Eagles.
way they would, if let's just say the Shucks experience goes even further south, like it goes backwards instead of forwards, right? I think that's a fine enough preseason game for your first NFL experience to be like, okay, if he improves from here, no problem, right? But let's say it goes backwards and Rattler continues where he's at. Any possibility they go and trade for one of these guys who's going to be leaving, um, like Browning from the Bengals or Badgett from the Bears or any of those type of players that have shown a little flash. Uh, Browning played out of his mind, really, if you go look at
Yeah,
that 2 years
yeah, he
ago.
did.
Um,
See, Browning it to me, that's Jake Hayner's ceiling. You know what I mean? That's what Jake Hayner's maximum. And the same thing with Dylan Gabriel. That's who their ceiling is Browning. Like he's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He just comes in and performs. Now maybe it's because the weapons in Cincinnati are fucking amazing and shit. One of us could probably go in there and complete a pass. But
yeah, and I
that's
mean that's kind of an, I mean, Browning played so well to put those guys even in his realm. I get it, like from
no, no,
a
no. I
skill
agree with you.
set standpoint. But
He's much better than they will either of them will probably ever be, if we're being
right,
honest. He has stamped his card to be a backup quarterback in the NFL for the next 10 years if he wants to.
That
But to
year,
answer your,
okay, that year I'm talking about, he went
I
four
know,
and
I know the
three and
one you're
seven
talking about.
starts.
Yeah. Yeah. He looked
He
good,
went
man. He looked good.
70%, almost 2,000 yards in seven starts, 12 and seven, and three
Yeah.
rushing touchdowns. So 15 touchdowns, seven interceptions. Like, would we do something like that? Would we get that desperate? To your point, he's 29, so he's not young.
Yeah. I don't want somebody I feel like we kind of know his ceiling. And to me, if you're going to make a move on somebody, it needs to be somebody young who still has, there's a little bit of mystery, and to me, that's Tanner McKee, that's Kyle McCord, or maybe it's Shador Sanders, or maybe it's Dylan Gabriel. Those are the four I would look at. No, I don't think there's any way in hell they cut Shador at this point. Like that city would just revolt just off of one preseason game. You know what I mean? Like they would
Well,
lose their
yeah,
fucking
unless the
mind.
next two don't go that way. You know what I mean? Then maybe.
Yep. But we know how
Uh,
social media is, man. People, they've made up their mind. Just like people made up their mind on Rattler based off of like one throw in the preseason last year. Like
yeah,
they were just dead set that this guy's the next guy and blah, 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 blah. So
it doesn't
I
make
think
them right either. So
absolutely, no, I mean, it makes them most likely wrong. And I think the narrative on Shador has already been written by social media. They're you're not convincing anyone that Shador isn't better than these other rookie quarterbacks based off of that last game, even though it was week one of the preseason. These people have made up their minds. It's the society we live in. Like everything is an instant reaction, and everything is the GOAT. Everything is the greatest moment of all time. The most recent moment. So I don't see any way they could get away with cutting him at this point. I think you're going to see someone's going to have a phantom injury and go on IR, most likely Gabriel, because Gabriel's nursing an injury right now. I have a feeling that injury is probably going to linger, and that dude goes on IR, and then you end up, Watson stays on the pup, and they can leave him on there for a few weeks, and they roll with they cut Huntley, and then they roll with the other three to start off. But the Eagles, you got to sneak someone on the practice squad, or you got to cut somebody or trade somebody because they traded for Dorian Thompson Robinson. Now they traded Pickett and for him, but I feel like he just fits that system and it's a simple plug and play,
he's
similar
young.
game
He's not
plan.
getting cut. He's not getting cut. I mean,
Right,
if he got
right,
cut, I would run and sign him.
right. So who out of the other two gets cut? I mean, shit, unless they pop up with an injury, you got to cut someone or you got to offload somebody.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
probably
would take
McCord.
either of them.
Yeah,
McCord was at Ohio State up until last year, played at Syracuse, 24 season, had a damn good season. So, he was
and
supposed
he
to be a
was
third
what?
round pick. He
Yeah,
was
where did
supposed
he
to be
go?
like a
Fifth?
third, I think fifth. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I'd take him in a second.
I mean, there's no reason to say he's not any worse than Shough, based on their college career, in my opinion. Um,
He can't
and
be
then
worse than Hayner. He can't be worse than Hayner, which right now is that's the floor. That's the one you got to beat out. So
yeah, so you get one
I
of
don't
those
know.
guys for free. I have a feeling that's what we're looking at, dude. I really think that that week before week one, we're going to be bringing in another young guy and dropping Hayner probably to the practice squad, and assuming he sits there. Um, I just feel like we're going to bring somebody else in. I don't know why, but the Giants also, right? Like DeVito's getting cut almost certainly, but what is the point of keeping Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson on your roster when you traded up for a first round quarterback? Why would you keep two of those guys? That makes no sense.
It makes no sense. You would keep DeVito instead of one of them.
Most likely, because you don't need two. So would not surprise me if one of them hit the market.
I don't want either of them. If Jameis comes back, you think the calls for Rattler allowed, the second Shuck throws an interception, they're going to be deafening for Jameis because
For sure.
I don't know what happened in that last season he was here, but all of a sudden the fan base decided they loved him. So don't want any part of
I'm ba-
Jameis coming back.
yeah, I'm basing this on what you told me is that they knew they couldn't go into the season with one of these guys. So would they do something like this? Like we wouldn't. I know that. I know you and I would not. But
Yeah,
are they still in the mindset of like we can't go out there and win two games this year? We can't do it, and Shuck is not the guy. Would they do something like this if they felt
I don't
comfortable?
know. I hope not. I honestly, unless we're bringing in a veteran specifically to mentor Shuck, and this
Mm-hmm.
person's expressed uh, job role is to just fucking let him absorb all of your experience and knowledge, be a mentor, be a father figure to him, even though you're only a couple years older than him. Unless someone's coming in with that expressed intent, man, just roll with what we got. See who gets cut on cut down days. If it's another rookie, pull him in. Like a Gabriel or Shadur or McCord or even the other one from the Eagles.
McKee.
Pull him in and get rid
Yeah.
McKee. Pull him in and get rid of Hayner. We know Hayner's not it. And you can let Hayner park his ass on the practice squad and be a coach on the field there. That's fine. I think that's going to be
Hmm.
his future for the next 8 or 9 years anyway. He'll somehow linger just because all the coaches are going to say, "Oh, this guy's great. He knows the offense inside and out. He's a coach on the field. He's good for the locker room, but he's going to be quarterback 3 or 4." That guy that kind of lives on the practice squad. But I don't know. I mean, it's going to be fun. I like that cut days now. It's just that one big cut day and not the staggered approach that they used to do. So that always makes for some surprises. So someone's going to get
Yeah.
cut. There's going to be a good young
Oh,
guy
for
that gets
sure.
cut, and hopefully we got to upgrade the third spot.
I agree.
Ideally Rattler slides into the third spot. And you get someone that can jump him because man, he's not it, dude. He's just not. You know,
No.
I hate to pick on the guy. I would love for him to be the guy. I would love for. I don't care who it is. It could be Hayner. If Hayner could flip a switch and all of a sudden turn into Drew Brees, I'd be the happiest person in the world. Like, we don't have a dog in the fight on trying to be right about which one it is. Just let one of them be good. And if they're not
Hmm.
good, fucking move on from them and keep taking swings at finding that next guy. Like we just you got to. I mean, you until you have a quarterback, you got nothing. You got no chance. And look, next year's draft class, man, it doesn't even look as strong as everybody was talking about in April. And that's the case every year. Every year, next year's QB class is the top one. It's so much better. I was looking at a mock draft the other day, and there's no consensus number one guy. Like some people say Cade Klubnik, some say Nussmeier, some say Sellers, some say Allar. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know. None of those
that's going to vet itself out most likely.
for sure,
It
for
does
sure.
every year. And in all likelihood, you're right. Two of them are going to end up looking like the guy, and two of the other ones will probably fall off the face of the earth. you know, we've seen it too many times. Quinn Ewer is going to be a first round pick, ends up a seventh round pick. We've had,
Oh, he looked
um,
terrible the other day. Did you see him?
yeah, he was bad. 4 for 18 or something crazy.
Yeah.
So I think some of that'll vet itself out. The question is whether it's going to be one, two, or three of them, that we'll have to choose from if we're in that spot. But you also have to like them on top of it. Not that they're good or they play well, but the Saint staff's got to like them for what they're trying to do. So I don't know. I don't think it could shape up to be a great draft potentially if Alar lives up to the hype, Sellers lives up to the hype, if unexpectedly Arch was supposed to come out, and if Nussmeier takes a step forward, you might have a built-up QB class that's out of control. It could happen. It could
Yeah.
also turn to none of them. It could be like last year where Cam Ward rises up, everyone else a little bit falls back, and there was no clear number two. Could be that too. Um, so we'll see, but I don't know.
I'm
We
excited to
definitely have to
watch
solve.
Sellers. I'm excited to watch Sellers. He's the one who has like all the potential in the world, but man, there's a lot that he needs to do to where before he can be considered a top pick in the draft.
Yeah,
He's that big, strong, fast
fast. Yeah,
specimen, like a Culpepper. He almost looks like Dante Culpepper. Like he's like 240. Like he's a beast. But I
he
don't know, man. I'd
dominated some
be
games, and then he had boneheaded turnovers in other games this year. So like he's got to get it all together um, on the mental side. I think he had 2 fumbles against Alabama, maybe in a game that they probably was it Alabama the game they should have won, or was it A&M? I don't know.
I
They
don't
played
remember.
great, and I think he had 2 bad turnovers and they ended up losing by 3. But then what he was doing at LSU before he got hurt, he was he was kicking the shit out of them. So yeah, he could quite possibly be the first pick in the draft if he lives up to the hype. And
Hmm.
Drew Alar, same type of thing. Like the
Dude, there's
talent is
something missing
there.
with him. Something's missing with
Agree.
him. I don't know what it
So
is. It's like he doesn't. I haven't seen him step up in one big game. Like Penn State was loaded the last 2 years, especially last year. Absolutely loaded. And man, big games. They just uh, he never came through. I don't see the it factor with him. I don't see it.
yeah,
But I don't know. Maybe he takes a step this year. I like Nussmeier, but he throws too many damn interceptions. But you
the
know,
part that worries me about Nussmeier is he just fades out the pocket too much, like Caleb used to. The same reason I told you I hated Caleb is just the way he plays. He fades away from pressure. You see it with Shough a little bit too in college. They start to just get on their back foot and backpedal, and I just think it's a disaster in the NFL if you have that tendency. And Nuss does it a lot, but the arm is insane. It's absolutely nuts. So
yeah, no, he's got a
if
cannon.
if he can get that out of his get that out of his game where he just steps into the pocket rather than fading out of it all the time, he could be special. But he's got to fix that. It's a huge thing because his arm's gotten him out of that trouble so many times in his career. It's a hard thing to change when they have success a lot of the times doing that. Just like Caleb. His arm could always bail him out in college. Gets to the pros and it's not so easy. A lot harder to your arm is special, but when you put yourself in bad spots, it doesn't make up the difference in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, we can go ahead and wrap this up with a few final thoughts, but I think I I was a little more. I'm a little more encouraged about Shuck going into week 2 of the preseason than I was going into week 1. And that's probably because, every article I've read was basically talking about how
Tank.
Rattlers, ahead and all this other stuff. And it's just, it's, I don't know, man, it kind of sapped the enthusiasm a little bit. But then watching the two of them play, I'm like, this is clear as day that one of these guys is not it. Now, the question we have, and it goes back to what you and I have been saying all along this episode and even before, it's can the other guy take this step and be the guy going forward? And we got to see him the whole season. We need to see him from week 1 on. We need a full 17 games. We got to see if Shuck can do it because if he's got 17 games, man, that's his audition. You and I were adamant about it after the draft, talking about it. That's his audition. That's his window. He's got to show it because if he doesn't show it and we're bad, we've got to take the next guy out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Rattler had his 6 or 7 games last year. Nothing's changed this year. There's no reason to think he's got it. I think Shuck, it's the possibilities there. So
You drafted
I'm a
Shough
little
for
more
a
excited.
reason.
Yeah,
You're not
player.
drafting Shough if you thought Rattler was the guy. You're probably not wasting that 40th pick going to get Shough and reaching for him if you thought Rattler was the guy. So, like, put him in. Let's see. And I'm not saying he's the guy, but I think we know Rattler's not the guy, and we have to know. Like this season, we have to know one way or
We
another. Are
have
we
to know.
going forward? Because next year, Shough is 27. And if you have a 20, this is why we said, both of us agreed. I think Corey disagreed a little bit on this point, in that if it took him a few years, it's okay. I say it's not because this is a rebuilding team. And when you come into the league at 26, you're either ready to go or you're not. You
Right,
don't get the grace of we were comparing to Bryce Young should get a few years because he was 20, I think, or 20, barely turned 21 when he was drafted. 3 years, he's going to be 24 years old. Okay, you've got a
right,
little buffer there to allow that to develop. When you're 26, you're drafted that high because they think you're ready, not because
right.
you're coming to develop. So he needs to play. He needs to start right out the gate. I think after this second preseason game, they need to just announce it, move forward, start game planning the whole team with Shough as starter, and just see what he can do. And if it's terrible, we reboot and we're drafting another one in the first round next year. That's the move. That's the only move.
Yeah, and the other reason we were so adamant about that, the clock starting the second he was drafted. Look, he's a second round pick. His contract's up after, he's eligible for a new contract after 3 years. So we all know that the biggest cheat code in the NFL is having a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. And the reality is, if it takes Shuck 3 years to be good, well, guess what? You got to pay him.
Right.
So we don't get
And
any
he's
benefit.
30.
He needs to be, yeah. Jesus Christ, man.
So it is what it is. And again, if he's the man in his 26th year, fantastic, no problem at all. But you're not waiting around. Like it's you're the guy. You're not the guy.
I want to see flashes like Drake May showed last year. Now, the Patriots had, a top five pick again after spending a top five pick on the quarterback. That being said, I think they have their quarterback in the future. I was always high on May, and I think he showed the flashes you want to see, even though that team was trash. So there's a world where this team could have a top five pick, and Shough does show that he can be the guy. Now, to me, that's your best case scenario. You know what I mean? Like if Shough comes in and we all feel confident at the end of the season that, hey, I think we've got our guy. There's going to be a year two breakout if we can sign a free agent or two and draft well again, but we have a top five pick. That's your best case scenario. So that's the scenario, I'm rooting for.
Yeah, it's
This
not
team
about
isn't winning a
wins.
Super Bowl.
It's about
Yeah,
right.
it's about
It's about
showing
what he
showing
looks
that he
like.
can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So man, that's the dream. So I don't know, man. You got anything else?
No, that's it. I think we exhausted. We'll kind of react and hopefully we hear he's the starter and then we'll see where we're at after the next one. It's Jacksonville next, right?
Think so. Yeah. My ticket just sold, so you're watching that one from the comfort of my couch.
Smart.
Yeah,
Less
I can't.
rage.
Well, we know Corey's going to go to the game because he's a big fan of the preseason. Can't get him to go to a regular season game, but he'll be there all guns blazing on the preseason games. So we'll
Yeah.
look forward for his man on the street reporting from the game, or maybe we'll
Live
enlist
from the
Bub
dome.
live from the dome. Yeah, so I'm sure there'll be lots of social media posts from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We'll go ahead and wrap this one up, and we'll be back next Monday to review the Jaguars game. If it is the Jaguars, is it the Jaguars? You should probably find it
I,
out.
I thought it was, but let's double check.
Shows you how important the preseason is. I don't really give a shit who it is.
Yeah, it only matters who they're actually. Yeah, it's the Jags on the 11th on Saturday. 11th? Wait, no, 17th. 17th. Sorry, Saturday.
Oh, it's gonna happen during UFC Fight Night.
Well, it's no, it's at noon.
It's a noon game. Wait, it's a Saturday noon
Is that
game?
it's 17th? What's the 17th? Sunday? Is that Sunday?
I think
Yeah,
that
it's
is
Sunday.
Sunday.
Sunday at noon. Sunday at noon.
Perfect. Good. All right.
So
Perfect.
right when you wake up, you can tune in
Nice
after
and
the
hungover.
fight night till 2 in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, it looks like Charlie's telling me to sign off. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to the 28 to 3 podcast.
What a comeback!